Captain Daniel Wright stood at the viewport of the U.S. horizon, staring at the massive ring-shaped station that housed the Galactic Council. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Captain, they're not responding to our hails," said Communications Officer Lisa Bell. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "All channels are dead." Daniel frowned. Just 2 hours ago, he had been in the council chambers attending what seemed like a routine diplomatic meeting. Now his ship was being ignored as if it didn't exist. "Try emergency frequencies," he ordered. "I tried them all, sir." Nothing. Daniel turned to his first officer. "Frank, what do you make of this?" Commander Frank Nelson shook his head. "In 20 years of diplomatic missions, I've never seen anything like this. The Council doesn't just cut communications." A red light flashed on the navigation console. "Captain, we're being targeted by defense platforms," shouted Lieutenant Ryan Kelly. "Shields up. Move us away from the station. Maximum safe speed." The horizon pulled away from the Council station, its engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. "Sir, I've managed to tap into an unsecured data stream," Lisa said suddenly. There's a declaration being broadcast across all Council worlds." Her face paled as she read the screen. "Captain, they've declared humanity a threat to galactic peace. They're declaring war on us." Daniel felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. War? After 3,000 years of peace? That's impossible. "The declaration is signed by all 7 Council races," Lisa confirmed. "We need to warn Earth. Now." Daniel turned to his communications officer. "Lisa, bypass the normal channels. Use the quantum entanglement communicator." "That's only for absolute emergencies, sir." "This qualifies." "Do it." On Earth, Admiral Olivia Martinez was enjoying her first cup of coffee of the day when the emergency alert sounded throughout Defense Force headquarters. "What is it?" she asked, entering the command center. General Paul Ramirez looked up from the central display. "Message from the U.S. horizon. Quantum channel." Olivia's blood ran cold. The quantum communicator was never used except in the direst circumstances. "Put it through." Captain Wright's face appeared on screen, his expression grim. "Admiral, the Council has declared humanity a threat to galactic stability. They've cut all official communications and are broadcasting a declaration of war to all Council worlds." The command center fell silent. "That's not possible," Olivia finally said. "We've had peace for 3,000 years. Nevertheless, it's happening. You need to prepare Earth's defenses. We'll try to make it back to human space, but our sensors show Council warships moving to block common hyperspace routes." "Understood, Captain. Get your crew home safely." After the transmission ended, Olivia turned to her staff. "I want all defense platforms activated. Recall all ships to the Sol system. And get me Intelligence Officer Alan Summers immediately." Alan Summers was already on his way to the Admiral's office when he received the summons. The lanky intelligence officer had been tracking something strange for months, and now it seemed to be coming to a head. "Admiral," he said, entering Olivia's office without ceremony. "I think I know what's happening." He placed a data pad on her desk. 6 human colonies on the rim have gone dark in the past 6 months. The Council told us it was communication malfunctions, but I never bought it. Olivia studied the display. "You think they were attacked?" "Yes, this was preparation. They've been testing our response times, our defensive capabilities." "But why now? Why after 3,000 years?" Alan shook his head. "I don't know, but I received this an hour ago." He pulled up another file. "It's from Ambassador Johnson on Nexus Prime. She's under house arrest, but managed to get this out through back channels." The message was brief. "The Ascended Ones have returned. They're manipulating the Council. Nothing is what it seems." Olivia stood up. "The Ascended Ones. I thought they were just observers." "Apparently not," Alan said. "And they want us gone." Olivia looked out her window at the San Francisco skyline. After 3,000 years of peace, humanity was facing extinction, and they had no idea why. "Alert all colonies," she said quietly. "The war has begun." Dr. Samuel Carter rushed through the white hallways of Luna Base, his heart racing. The message had been urgent. "Come immediately. Bring all research on the Ascended Ones." For 20 years, his colleagues had laughed at his theories. Now someone was finally listening. He entered the conference room to find 5 stern-faced military officers waiting for him. "Dr. Carter," said the woman at the head of the table, "I'm General Nicole Harris. Thank you for coming quickly." Samuel placed his data pad on the table. "You said it was about my research on the Ascended Ones." General Harris nodded. "What can you tell us about them?" "The Ascended Ones are the oldest known species in the galaxy. They supposedly evolved beyond physical form thousands of years ago. The Council treats them like wise elders, but they rarely interact with anyone." Samuel paused. "My research suggests they aren't what they claim to be." "Explain," ordered General Harris. Samuel activated his data pad, displaying ancient cave paintings from a dozen worlds. These predate the Council by thousands of years. They all show the same thing: beams of light descending from the sky, followed by images of destruction. "You believe the Ascended Ones were conquerors?" asked the colonel. "I believe they've been manipulating galactic civilization for a very long time," Samuel replied. "And now they've turned the Council against us." Across the galaxy, Lieutenant Laura Phillips guided her stealth ship through the defensive grid surrounding Nexus Prime. Her mission: extract Ambassador Katherine Johnson before the Council could move her to a more secure location. "We're approaching the diplomatic quarter," Laura told her team of 4 Marines. "Remember, this is a grab and go. No casualties unless absolutely necessary." The ship landed silently on the roof of the ambassador's residence. Laura's team moved quickly, disabling the guards with stun weapons and reaching Catherine's quarters in under 3 minutes. The ambassador was waiting, a small bag already packed. "Right on time, Lieutenant." "We need to move fast, Mom," Laura said. As they hurried back to the ship, Catherine explained the situation. "The Ascended Ones returned to Council space 2 months ago. They spoke only to the Council leadership, behind closed doors. Whatever they said turned the Council against us overnight." "But why?" asked Laura, helping the ambassador into the ship. "They claim we're descendants of a race called the Destroyers," Catherine said as the ship lifted off. "According to Council records, the Destroyers nearly wiped out all sentient life in the galaxy 100,000 years ago." "That's ridiculous," said Laura. "Humans evolved on Earth. The Ascended Ones say our ancestors fled there after their defeat, regressing to primitive forms to hide." Catherine's eyes were troubled. Some Council members were skeptical, but then the Ascended Ones showed them something that convinced even our strongest allies. On the colony world of Nova Terra, Peter Mason wiped sweat from his forehead as he dug another irrigation trench. The farming colony was one of humanity's newest, still being terraformed to increase food production. His shovel hit something hard. Metal, not rock. "Hey, Deb," he called to his supervisor. "Found something weird down here." Deborah Jones climbed down into the trench and brushed dirt from the metal surface. "That's not one of our pipes." As more dirt was cleared away, they uncovered a smooth metal door embedded in the ground, covered with strange symbols that seemed to shift and change as they looked at them. "Should we call someone?" Peter asked. "Definitely," Deborah said, not taking her eyes off the door. "This isn't human technology." Before they could make the call, the symbols on the door began to glow with blue light. Peter felt a strange tingling in his hand, like electricity but painless. Without thinking, he reached out and touched the glowing symbols. The door slid open silently, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. Lights activated automatically as Peter took a step forward, drawn by something he couldn't explain. "Peter, wait," Deborah called. "We don't know what's down there." But Peter couldn't stop. Somehow, he knew this place. Somehow, it was calling to him specifically. "It's okay," he said, continuing down the stairs. I think it's been waiting for us. The sky above New Haven Colony turned red with fire as Council ships rained destruction from orbit. Similar attacks were happening on 2 other human border worlds at the same time. "Get those people on the transport now," shouted Colonel Eric Bennett as he helped a crying child find her mother in the crowd. The evacuation was going as well as could be expected. They had managed to get most of the colony's 15,000 residents to the spaceport. "Colonel, we've got 8 minutes before the next orbital strike hits this sector," said his second-in-command, Major Carroll White. Eric nodded grimly. "Status on the transports. Last 3 are loading now. We'll get about 80% of the colonists out." It wasn't perfect, but it was better than they had hoped when the Council fleet appeared without warning 6 hours ago. The colony's small defense force had managed to hold off ground troops long enough for the evacuation to proceed. A massive explosion shook the ground as another Council bomb hit nearby. "That's it. We're out of time," Eric said. "Get on that last transport." "What about you, sir?" Eric checked his weapon. "Someone has to hold them off until you clear atmosphere." In the Alpha Centauri system, Fleet Commander Gregory Howard watched the approaching Council armada on his view screen. 20 ships against his 5. Not good odds. "All ships, maintain formation," he ordered. "Prepare to activate Aegis Shield on my command." The Aegis Shield was humanity's secret weapon, developed over the past century and never revealed to the Council. Today would be its first real test. "Council ships entering optimal range," reported his tactical officer. "Now," Gregory said. All 5 human ships activated a synchronized energy field. The space between them shimmered like water, then solidified into what looked like a wall of blue light. The Council ships opened fire, their energy weapons striking the shield. The shield held. "Return fire," Gregory ordered. His ships fired through the shield, their weapons unaffected by the barrier that stopped enemy attacks. 2 Council ships exploded immediately. The others began to retreat in confusion. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we're receiving transmissions from the Council fleet. They're asking what we just did." Gregory allowed himself a small smile. "Tell them this is just the beginning." Dr. Elizabeth Ross had been working for 24 hours straight in her lab on Nova Terra. The facility Peter Mason discovered was yielding incredible data. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered as she compared DNA samples. Peter looked up from the ancient console he was somehow able to operate. "What's wrong?" Elizabeth pointed to her screen. "I've compared your DNA with the genetic markers in the facility's database. There's a match." "That's impossible," Peter said. "This place is thousands of years old." "Hundreds of thousands, actually," Elizabeth corrected. "And it gets stranger. I tested DNA samples from 10 other colonists. All of them have these same markers, just less pronounced than yours." She pulled up another display. "These markers match perfectly with the technology signatures found in other destroyer artifacts. The conclusion is inescapable. Humans aren't just descended from the destroyers, Peter. We are the destroyers." Peter stared at the symbols on the ancient console, which somehow made perfect sense to him now. "But the Council records say the destroyers tried to wipe out all life in the galaxy. That can't be right." "History is written by the winners," Elizabeth said. "What if everything we know about the destroyers is wrong?" A message alert flashed on Elizabeth's pad. She read it and went pale. "What is it?" Peter asked. "Alpha Centauri just repelled a Council attack with technology we've never seen before. New Haven, Proxima Colony, and Terra Nova were all hit. Thousands dead, more missing." She looked up at him. "The war has begun in earnest." Peter turned back to the ancient console. "Then we need to work faster. This facility contains knowledge that could help us survive." As he placed his hands on the console, the entire room hummed with energy. More symbols appeared, flowing like water across the walls. "What are you doing?" Elizabeth asked in awe. "I'm not sure," Peter admitted, "but I think the facility is waking up. and I think it wants to help us remember who we really are. John Baker woke up sweating. The dreams were getting more vivid every night. He had seen vast cities of crystal and light, technologies beyond imagination, and stars that no human had ever visited. But they felt familiar, like memories rather than dreams. He wasn't alone. Across human space, people reported similar experiences. Some gained new abilities. A factory worker suddenly understood complex mathematics. A farmer's daughter started drawing detailed technical blueprints. A pilot found she could sense energy fields around her ship. Scientists called it the awakening. It's spreading, Admiral Olivia Martinez told her staff at Earth Defense Headquarters. Reports from all colonies showed the same pattern. Whatever was dormant in our DNA is waking up. Is it dangerous? Asked General Ramirez. No, said Dr. Samuel Carter, who had joined the Emergency Council. It's who we are, who we've always been. The question is, why now? Major Christopher Allen led his team through the dark corridors of the Council facility. Intelligence had located this secret base on a moon in neutral space. Reports suggested humans were being held here. Motion sensors showed 20 guards and about 40 other life forms, whispered Sergeant Wendy Clark, checking her scanner. The human should be in the central chamber. The team moved silently, using non-lethal weapons to take down the guards. When they reached the central chamber, Christopher had to fight back his anger. 30 humans floated in transparent tubes filled with blue liquid. Scientists from the myriad race monitored them, taking readings and samples. Take them down, Christopher ordered. His team stunned the scientists before they could sound an alarm. One of the scientists was still conscious. Christopher grabbed him. What are you doing to them? He demanded. The myriad scientists' 6 eyes blinked rapidly. Research. The destroyer gene is activating. The Council needs to understand why. Destroyer gene. The part of your DNA that makes you destroyers. The Ascended Ones said it would activate soon. They were right. The scientist looked afraid. You'll remember everything soon. What you were, what you did. Professor Julia Reeves had been running a simple quantum experiment when everything changed. A power surge, a flash of light, and suddenly her mind expanded across the stars. For 3 minutes she was connected to something vast and ancient. When she woke up in the hospital, equations and designs filled her mind. How do you feel? Asked Dr. Richard Foster. Different, Julia said, like I've been half asleep my whole life. She pointed to the tablet on her bedside table. I need that. For hours, she drew designs for technology that should have been impossible. When Admiral Martinez visited her the next day, Julia had filled 50 pages with diagrams and equations. You experienced the awakening, Olivia said. It wasn't a question. Julia nodded, but more intensely than others, I think. I connected to something, Admiral. A network spanning the galaxy. The knowledge was always there in my mind, just waiting to be remembered. Can you build these things you've designed? With the right materials, yes. This one first. Julia pointed to a spherical device. It's a communication system that can't be blocked or intercepted. The Council won't be able to stop it. And this. Olivia pointed to another design that looked like a weapon. Julia's expression grew serious. That's for later, when we're ready to take the fight to the Ascended Ones themselves. Peter Mason descended deeper into the Nova Terra facility. Each day, more of the ancient complex awakened at his touch. Each day, his understanding grew. There's something big down here, he told Dr. Elizabeth Ross over his communicator. A chamber larger than anything we've found so far. Be careful, Elizabeth warned. The energy readings are off the charts. Peter reached a massive door covered in glowing symbols. When he placed his hand on it, the symbols rearranged themselves, forming words in modern English. Welcome home, Destroyer. The archive awaits. The door opened to reveal a vast spherical chamber. In its center floated a ball of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Elizabeth, Peter whispered, I think I found out why the Ascended Ones fear us. As he stepped toward the light, knowledge began to flow into his mind. The true history of the destroyers, the Ascended Ones, and the war that had shaped the galaxy for 100,000 years. We weren't the destroyers, he said in awe. We were trying to save everyone. Not all council races supported the war against humanity. The Valari, tall blue-skinned beings known for their wisdom, were the first to break ranks. The Valari delegation has left the council chambers, an aide told Admiral Olivia Martinez. Their ships are returning to their home systems. They've declared neutrality. Can we contact them? Olivia asked. They've already reached out to us, said the aide, handing her a datapad. Their ambassador wishes to speak with you privately. Hours later, Olivia sat across from Ambassador Krell, the Valari representative. His large silver eyes studied her carefully. You're taking a great risk meeting with me, Olivia said. My people believe something is very wrong within the council, Krell replied. The historical records about the destroyers show inconsistencies that have long been ignored. When the Ascended Ones returned and demanded action against humans, many of us had questions. What kind of inconsistencies? Dates that don't match. Battle sites where no evidence of destruction exists. And strangest of all, records of destroyer technology helping worlds that were supposedly their enemies. Krell leaned forward. Admiral, I believe the history we've been taught is a lie. Captain Daniel Wright's battle group had been fighting for days. 3 council attack waves had been repelled, but his ships had taken heavy damage. Captain, his communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from a Myriad ship. They're requesting to meet. Daniel frowned. The Myriad were among the most technologically advanced council races. Could be a trap. They're sending the message on an old human frequency. They say they have information about the Ascended Ones. Daniel considered his options. Tell them we'll meet. 1 ship, neutral location. The meeting took place on an abandoned mining station. Daniel brought only his first officer and security chief. The Myriad sent a single representative, a female named Tessera. Thank you for meeting me, she said. Her voice had the musical quality typical of her species. A faction within my race has been studying the Ascended Ones for generations. What we discovered disturbed us greatly. What did you find? Daniel asked. The Ascended Ones were not victims of the destroyers as they claim. They were their jailers. Tessera's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The ancient war wasn't an act of aggression by your ancestors. It was a prison break. On Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council, chaos erupted in the streets. Thousands of beings from a dozen species gathered outside the council chambers, demanding proof of the claims against humanity. Council Praetor Vexillar, the highest authority in council space, watched the protests from his tower. His communicator chimed. The situation is deteriorating, he said when he answered. Your promised evidence against the humans has not been convincing enough. The voice that replied was soft and melodious, seemingly coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. The humans are awakening faster than anticipated. You must accelerate the plans. My people are growing suspicious, Vexillar argued. They demand. What they demand is irrelevant. The voice cut him off. Implement martial law across council space. Any who question our wisdom are to be detained. That will cause more unrest. Unrest is preferable to extinction, which is what will happen if the destroyers fully awaken. The voice grew colder. Or have you forgotten who truly rules the council, Praetor? After the communication ended, Vexillar stared out at the city below. For 3,000 years, the council had served the Ascended Ones without question. Now, for the first time, he wondered if they had been serving the wrong masters all along. Nevertheless, he gave the order. Within hours, military forces moved against the protesters. Emergency powers were enacted. Council space fell under martial law. As news of the crackdown spread, more worlds began to question. And as questions grew, the carefully maintained peace of 3 millennia began to crack apart like thin ice on a warming pond. In the shadows between stars, the Ascended Ones watched and waited. The cycle that had sustained them for countless eons was at risk. The destroyers were remembering. And this time, they might not be stopped. Peter Mason stood before the glowing archive on Nova Terra, his mind filling with knowledge that had been hidden for 100,000 years. Dr. Elizabeth Ross and a team of scientists watched in awe as holographic images appeared around him, showing scenes from an ancient past. "The destroyers were us," Peter said, his voice distant as if speaking from across time. "We were peaceful explorers who discovered a terrible truth." The images showed sleek ships exploring distant worlds, making contact with alien species, building a thriving civilization across the stars. "What truth?" Elizabeth asked. "The Ascended Ones were harvesting entire civilizations, not for resources or territory, but for something else. Something worse." Peter pointed to new images showing strange energy being drawn from dying worlds. "They feed on consciousness, on sentience itself. They needed to maintain their evolved state." The scientists watched in horror as the images showed planet after planet being drained of life, leaving empty husks behind. "Our ancestors discovered this and tried to warn the galaxy. But the Ascended Ones used their influence to turn everyone against us. They branded us destroyers, claiming we were the ones annihilating worlds." "And no one questioned this?" Elizabeth asked. "The Ascended Ones can manipulate perception. They made everyone see what they wanted them to see." Peter's eyes refocused as he looked at her. "And they operate in cycles, Elizabeth. They return every 3,000 years to harvest. Our 3,000 years of peace wasn't a coincidence. They're back because it's feeding time." On Earth, Dr. Samuel Carter and Ambassador Katherine Johnson pieced together the final parts of the puzzle. "The timing makes sense," Samuel said, studying the data from Nova Terra. 3,000 years ago, humanity was just beginning to rebuild after a devastating war. We had lost our advanced technology, our connection to our past. "They thought they had neutralized us for good," Katherine added. "They never expected our genetic memory would begin to wake up right as they returned. That's why they want us gone so badly," Samuel realized. "We're the only ones who know what they really are, the only ones who can stop them." Their discussion was interrupted as Admiral Martinez entered the room. "We've received reports from 20 different council worlds," she said. "Open rebellion against the council leadership. The truth about the Ascended Ones is spreading." "And the war?" Katherine asked. "Still raging, but the lines are shifting. Some council forces have stopped fighting us. Others have intensified their attacks." Olivia's face was grim. "The Ascended Ones have dropped all pretense now. They've taken direct control of key council military assets. On Nexus Prime, the council capital was in flames. Vexillar watched from his command center as parts of the city rose up against his forces. 'This is your fault,' said a voice behind him. He turned to find one of the Ascended Ones hovering there, a being of light and energy with only the vaguest humanoid shape. "I followed your orders," Vexillar protested. "Not well enough. The humans have accessed their archive. They're remembering." The being's light pulsed with anger. "We should have destroyed them completely the first time." "What are they?" "Really?" Vexillar asked, finding courage he didn't know he had. "They're the only species that ever saw us for what we are," the being replied. "And now they will pay for that knowledge again." The Ascended One gestured, and Vexillar felt his mind being invaded, his thoughts rewritten. As his consciousness faded, replaced by the will of his master, his last independent thought was a hope that the humans would succeed where his people had failed. Professor Julia Reeves completed the device she had been building since her awakening. It was spherical, about the size of a basketball, with intricate patterns etched into its metallic surface. "What exactly will this do?" Admiral Martinez asked, examining it carefully. "It will connect the latent genetic memory of all humans for a brief moment," Julia explained. A unity moment that will allow everyone to access the knowledge and memories of our ancestors. Is it safe? It's necessary, Julia said simply. The Ascended Ones are moving their harvest fleet toward Earth. We're out of time. She activated the device. It hummed softly, then began to glow with the same blue light that permeated the Nova Terra archive. How long? The Admiral asked. Minutes to power up. Seconds to change everything. Julia looked up at the stars visible through the window. We're about to remember who we really are. Professor Julia Reeves' device activated with a soft hum that quickly grew louder. Blue light spread from it in waves, washing over Earth and then beyond, reaching out to every human in the galaxy. For a single moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, all of humanity shared one consciousness. Past and present merged. Ancient knowledge flooded into modern minds. Every human, from children to the elderly, remembered who they truly were. When it ended, people opened their eyes to a changed reality. They understood their heritage, their technology, and their purpose. Did it work? Admiral Olivia Martinez asked, blinking as her vision cleared. Yes, Julia replied, her hands moving with new confidence over equipment that had seemed alien just minutes before. Every human now knows what we are, what we face, and how to fight back. Across human space, people began to access abilities and knowledge they never knew they possessed. Engineers modified weapons with designs they suddenly understood. Pilots flew with newfound instincts. Soldiers moved with the training of ancient warriors. The Ascended One's fleet has entered the solar system, announced General Ramirez. Over 200 ships approaching Earth. Deploy the defense fleet, Olivia ordered, and send the signal to our allies. Captain Daniel Wright led the assault on the Ascended One's hidden stronghold in the galactic core. His ships, now modified with recovered destroyer technology, moved through space in ways that defied conventional physics. Multiple energy signatures ahead, reported his tactical officer. The harvester facility is bigger than we expected. Daniel nodded. The unity moment had shown them all what to look for. A massive structure where the Ascended Ones stored the consciousness they had stolen from countless species. Begin the attack, he ordered. Remember, we're not just fighting for humanity. We're fighting for every species they've ever harvested. Major Christopher Allen led ground forces on worlds where the Ascended Ones controlled Council military bases. His troops now moved with perfect coordination, their awakened abilities making them nearly unstoppable. On the Council world of Teralis, he stood before thousands of freed citizens. For too long, the Ascended Ones have manipulated us all, he told them. Today that ends. The crowd cheered as more Council ships defected to the human side. The great deception was crumbling. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Martinez watched as the Ascended One's fleet approached. Their ships were beautiful and terrible, constructs of light and energy that seemed barely physical. They're preparing to fire, said her tactical officer. Energy levels rising. Activate the shield network, Olivia ordered. Across Earth's orbit, human ships formed a pattern, creating a shield similar to the Aegis shield but vastly more powerful. As the Ascended Ones fired their planet-killer weapon, the shield absorbed the energy completely. Return fire, Olivia commanded. Human ships fired weapons based on the designs Julia Reeves had created, weapons specifically designed to harm beings of energy. The Ascended One's ships began to fall. On Nova Terra, Peter Mason and Dr. Elizabeth Ross worked with the ancient archive, using its power to broadcast the truth to every corner of the galaxy. The archive's energy reached out, neutralizing the Ascended One's ability to manipulate perception. It's working, Elizabeth said, watching displays showing the Ascended One's influence fading across hundreds of worlds. They can't hide anymore. Peter nodded, his hands moving over the archive's controls. 3,000 years ago, they almost wiped us out. Today, we end their harvest forever. The final battle lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Ascended One's power was broken. Their harvester facilities were destroyed. Their ability to feed on consciousness was neutralized by technology recovered from humanity's past. In the council chambers on Nexus Prime, representatives from every species gathered. The old council was gone, replaced by a new coalition built on truth. Admiral Olivia Martinez stood before them, representing humanity. "For too long we were divided by lies," she said. "We fought each other while the real enemy fed on us all. That ends today." She looked around the chamber at faces that had been enemies just weeks before. "We don't come as conquerors but as protectors. The knowledge of our ancestors belongs to all of us. Together, we can build something new, something better. A galaxy where no species feeds on another, where we grow together in peace and understanding." The chamber erupted in cheers. The 3,000-year cycle was broken. For the first time in countless ages, the galaxy faced a future of its own making. The war that had begun with a declaration against humanity ended with a declaration of freedom for all.